Hi guys, we are making some mash, which I'm using just cracked corn, just regular feed corn. If you try to do this, for the first time, don't use anything that's vitamin enriched or has molasses or anything like that in it. Just make sure it's straight corn. And the mashing process is I heat it up to boiling. You have to stir it a lot or it burns, as you can imagine. I let the corn soak in water overnight, and once it hits up to boiling, I kind of simmer it and keep it at about, I use a meat thermometer, or a big thermometer for cooking, and like a candy thermometer, and I keep it at around 170-ish until it turns into like porridge. I'll show you when it gets there. That's called gelatinization. And after that, I put in these enzymes, amylase enzyme, and that breaks. What we done was we gelatinized the starch, and then the amylase enzyme converts the starch into fermentable sugars, because starch isn't fermentable. And after that, we stick it in. We cool it down. Oh, well, let me go back. You put the amylase enzymes in at like 158 to 145. I start at 158. I get it to that temperature, let it cool to that, and put in, this is 7 pounds of corn, and I put in like a good heaping spoonful of amylase enzyme, and then you stir it in there real well, and I let it sit for an hour. And then you'll see it'll be real thick, and then when the amylase does its job, it'll be thin and soupy again, because starch is thick and sugar isn't. And then we put it in a fermenting bucket and add yeast nutrients. I use 8 pounds of sugar. A lot of people do 7 pounds of corn, 7 pounds of sugar, but the kind of sugar I use, which is unrefined cane sugar, it's 100% fermentable, or table sugar works perfectly well, but it's 80% fermentable. So I just use the other kind, just my preference. And when we're done, we will have a potential alcohol by volume of around 13 to 15%. Just depends on the conversion, how much starch I convert in the corn into sugars. So it varies a little bit sometimes. Excuse me. And that's it for now. And I will come back and show you when it's turned into when it's completely gelatinized. Okay, so as you can see, I have the heat off now. The corn is gelatinized. See how thick it is? And if you tasted it, it tastes like cornmeal without anything in it that's been cooked. No salt or just tastes like corn. And see, right now it's a little over 200. And one of the reasons to bring it up to a boil and then bring it back down is to sterilize it. You want as little amount of germs as possible. And that you don't want the less contamination, the less chances of getting the virus that causes stuff to turn to vinegar, and getting off flavors. So I think that's about it for now. I'm gonna bring this down. Just keep stirring it, turning it over, digging in it, flopping it over, and get it down to 158 degrees. And then I will add my enzyme, and you can remember now this, and then I'll show you what it looks like after it's been mashed. And that's it for this segment. Be back in a while. Okay, there's the enzymes in it, amylase, and I'll stir it up real well. Just wanted to show you, see, just how, well, not kind of hard to tell right now, but already see it's thinning it out. That's converting the starches. But you got to really stir it real well and get that stuff mixed in all around and everything. And then I put a lid on the pot and wrap it in a towel, and I let it sit for 1 hour. There's all kinds of different, lots of information on how long it takes to convert. I do it 1 hour and keep it at the 158 degrees by wrapping it with a towel and the lid. And that's it for this segment. I don't know why I keep saying silly things like that. Can't tell if I'm in or out or whatever, other than a little splice in the video, but we'll sit out this. Okay, never mind. Okay, remember how thick and gloppy it was? As you can see after the conversion, it's gotten a lot thinner. And if you taste it right now, it would have a little bit of a sweet to it, because we've converted those over to sugars over to starch, or starch over to sugar, sorry. And we're going to put in, this is the sugar that I use. I get it at the dollar store. It's a buck for 4 pounds. This is unrefined cane sugar. And we are going to put water in there with the sugar and bring it up to, or bring it down to, probably I should say, to shoot, I can't think it off the top of my head. I'll say it in my next segment, what the temperature is. And we're going to add some yeast nutrient, which is diammonium phosphate. That's what I use. There's several different kinds you can use, and it's not even a must, but I like putting it in there. It helps the yeast get started. And this is the kind of yeast I use. There's a few different brands. Red Star is the brand. Daddy yeast is the kind of yeast, and this is a brewer's yeast. And you can use yeast right out of the store, but this has a higher alcohol resistance. So when it eats the sugars and turns that into alcohol, bread yeast will die out quicker. So I can get a higher alcohol content with this. And that's all preference, and experiment around, see what you like. There's let's see, some of the mistakes I've made that I can tell you about is soaking it. I only soak it overnight, the grain. One time I was thinking, oh, if I let it soak for 2 or 3 days, it'll be more hydrated and easier to mash. But it spoiled, and it stunk real bad when I opened the lid on the bucket to get it out to mash it, and that didn't work out very good. So like I said, just for me, I do it overnight. I put it on in the evening before I go to bed, and then when I get up, I start to mash. And let's see. What I'm going to do is I'll ferment this, and I've already got one. I put one bucket on about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours ago, and it's already bubbling. I'll show you that. And once that ferments, it takes 7 to 14 days, and temperature has a lot to do with that. If you can keep it at the ideal temperature, like 72 to 76, somewhere in there, degrees. Well, that's another thing. There's different yeast that will withstand colder temperatures and hotter temperatures, so you can kind of adjust that for your climate and time of year. And but it's not a huge vary, but it can definitely make a difference. And let's see, after it's fermented, I'll distill it, and that's the whiskey. And then I'll take one of those. After I distill it, there's some, you cook the alcohol out of the wash, it's called. This is mash, and the liquid part would be the wash. So you cook the alcohol out of that, and then what's left over is backset. And I'll pour some of that backset back into this same stuff. I'm just going to siphon all the liquid off of this when I'm distill it, and then run that through a cheesecloth so there's no particles in there when I distill it. But there'll be the same stuff in the bottom of the bucket. And I'll pour a gallon of backset back in here, and then add water. And I don't have to add yeast ever again. I add water and sugar, and then that's where you start getting into a true sour mash, and that's called a Uncle Jesse's simple sour mash method. And that you just keep the generations going. You just add water and sugar each time, and some backset, and it gets better and better each time you do that. It changes the characteristics with the age and the different generations, and it's a really neat process. And to me, it's a lot of fun to do that. There's like after about 4 or 5 generations, I can swear I can almost taste a butterscotch in the whiskey. It's pretty neat. But so that's it, and I will show you after I get all the stuff dumped in there. Oh, I put just a regular spoonful of the yeast nutrient, and I put like a heaping tablespoon of yeast, and I'll stop for now. Okay, this is what it looks like. I put the sugar in it and stirred it all up and dissolved all the sugar. And this is a hydrometer, and it has this is a triple scale. It has 3 scales. That's the gravity, which that measures how much sugar is in there. And that's by volume. That's percentages. That's what I go by. It's the simplest. And this is Brix, which is an old school way to measure. It's all the same thing, just saying it in a different way. And technically, you should siphon some out without any particles and put it in a cylinder and do it. But what we're basically doing is making beer. And except beer, it has hops and different things in it, and you're going to take that and bottle it from the fermenter eventually. So you have to be way more conscious of germs and bacteria and contaminants. You need to pay attention to that too as well, making mash, but not quite as much. You can be a little lazy on some of that. And I'm not real concerned about dead nuts on, so we're going to just measure what we got. And let's take it out. Okay, so if I look at that where it got wet, it's hard for you guys to see this. I know. I have 10, 11, 12, 13% alcohol by volume. That's potential. So as long as everything ferments out of there, the sugars, that's how much alcohol will be in there. And so basically I will get, let me think, about 2 quarts, maybe 3 quarts of 180 proof whiskey out of this bucket. So that's pretty good, really. And when people say it's dry, that means it's actually fermented below. You can, I'll show you when I'm done, when it's done fermented, this will be all the way in here. And then once I get into my different generations, like I was talking about, it'll actually ferment down to here. It'll go below 0 because the yeast mutate and they become more alcohol resistant, and they just eat everything they possibly can in there. So that's with that. And now I'm gonna, here, I don't think I can do that while you're watching. There's some nutrient. Stir that up. Oh, shoot, I can't open the yeast with one hand. There is 1 heaping tablespoon of yeast in there. That's what yeast looks like. In case you've never seen it before. I think most people have, but maybe some haven't. And I just gently kind of stir that all in. Some people don't even do that. They like to just toss it right on top and let it do its thing from there. But I like to make sure it's all soaked in, I guess. getting hydrated. Okay, there's the first one with happy yeast bubbling away. I think it's probably been about 3 hours now since I've put that one on. And there's the one y'all just watched me do. Let's see. You should yeast. I forgot to mention the temperature. I didn't take a picture of me using a thermometer, but it's like 76 to 80 degrees is the best range to pitch your yeast. And there we go. I will kind of show some progress pictures of this, and hope everyone enjoyed the little how-to make mash. And please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Bye.